Senator Curtis, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure everybody will be disappointed. I'm actually going to change subjects. Chairman, you were good enough to come to my office a few days ago, and we talked about Section 230. And in that meeting, I tried to bifurcate. I know a lot of people, when you hear 230, think of censorship. And for a minute, just set that aside. I'm not going to try to solve that. That's a very complex issue. But you and I talked about algorithms. And for those who weren't there, the analogy that kind of comes to mind is the digital billboard. Originally, social media companies were to provide the venue for a digital billboard. Somewhere along the line, that model changed. We compared it to the post office. If the post office is delivering a letter from you to me, we obviously don't hold them responsible for that content. But if the post office opened that letter, read it, and then said, we're actually going to send this to 100 million people, that's a different conversation. So my question for you is, from your perspective, are we underestimating the dangers of algorithm-driven content?
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. I've gone back since our meeting and taken a look at your legislation again, and I'm happy to continue to sort of meet and discuss with you on that. I do think I've expressed concerns over the years about how courts have sort of misinterpreted and given expansive new readings to Section 230 that aren't in the statutory text. And I think there's some of those issues in your legislation as well that are worth looking at.
Thank you. And to kind of, here again, bring everybody else up to speed that hasn't had the chance to do that, the question is, should Section 230 protections apply to social media companies that employ harmful recommendations or cause harm by their recommendations, going beyond just the digital billboard, but actually taking those now and sending them out to hundreds of millions of people?
Yes, Senator, and there's a debate to some extent in the courts as well about part of Section 230 that talks about platforms being liable if they've contributed, even in part, to the development. And this is sort of a live issue, is how does algorithms play into the contributed in part portion of that analysis?
Yeah, and as everybody here knows, this Section 230 goes decades and decades back. And I think it's clear to say we didn't really see the world that we're in today. And so I just introduced that to you and to others as something that we need to start thinking about. Also, when you were in my office, we talked about permitting reform. And would love to ask you, you've had a chance to think about this, what's the role of Congress in assisting you in your permitting reform goals, and what can we be doing on our side to make sure that we can actually complete these projects in a responsible way that are so important to you to complete?
Well, thank you, Senator. Look, I think it's, there's no question that it costs too much and it takes too long to build out not just broadband infrastructure, but almost any infrastructure in this country. And I think that's probably one of the most significant economic development efforts that this Congress can do, is to continue to codify and streamline permitting regulations. We have a proceeding underway at the FCC. We're looking at NEPA, the environmental regulations, and how perhaps they've been misapplied in onerous ways over the years. We're looking at state and local requirements where potentially their fees and permitting structure might not align with the cost-based approach that we've used before. But we have to get back to turning dirt, and this is going to be an important work stream for us.
Commissioner Trustee, how do you see permitting reform, and how important is it that we figure this out?
It's essential. It's essential to meeting our universal connectivity goals. You know, as the chairman mentioned, we've been working on simplifying rules, reducing regulatory burdens on businesses, and streamlining licensing and permitting processes to better advance broadband providers' build-out efforts. So we're looking at pole attachments, making those processes more cost-effective and transparent. He mentioned environmental and historic reviews, making sure that those reviews are more predictable and efficient. And we're also looking at opening up access to rights-of-way, another barrier to deploying broadband and connecting homes and businesses across the country.
Commissioner Gomez, do you agree with your colleagues?
Senator, I think getting access to affordable broadband is as quickly as possible is very important.
I'm pleased that on our side, this seems to be a bipartisan issue. There are still some hurdles moving forward, but figuring out here again how to do it responsibly. Nobody's suggesting we should be irresponsible. Chairman Carr, in the few seconds I have left, can you maybe educate us on what happens if we don't figure out permitting reform?
Well, communities that have been stuck on the wrong side of the digital divide are going to remain there. The cost of building is going to be higher. That could raise prices. and it'll slow down the build-out of these BEAD infrastructure projects that I think are going to be really important to the country. So we got to get going.
I would agree. I think we all agree. I would also point out this is not just in your world. In the energy sector, we have the same problem. And we're really struggling as a country figuring out how to be able to allow things to move forward in a responsible way. And I hope that here in the Senate we can figure out a path forward for everybody that needs this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time.
Thank you, Senator Blunt-Rocha.